Good morning.
Good morning.
We have our choir dressed in as green and blue as they could get. So, yeah, yeah, it's good. It's good. You know, your soul is welcome here. Actually, this is a place to remember that, it's a center for spiritual living. It's not just a center that teaches spiritual living. It's also for people who are centered in spirit. And then you know your soul's welcome everywhere. Just everywhere. Your soul is welcome because spirit welcomes us, and that's a great way to live. We have two traditional things that we do at this time. One is, if you have a smartphone, go ahead and sign in. In fact, if some of the people you know aren't here, text them and say, get on live streaming because this is going to be an exceptionally interesting service, as you'll see. It's not like, I can honestly say it's not like any service you've seen before. Stay tuned. So people might want to get involved. The other thing is that we have a tradition of loving on, blessing, and giving a gift to anyone who's having a birthday, because everyone's birth is significant in the universe. So, if you're having a birthday, raise your hand or stand up. There we go. Good. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Is that kind of like a little cowboy song at the end? Oh, cowboy music, no. We obviously are too high on Seahawk fumes and are all so excited because I think it's a little bit crazy here, which is a good thing. The last thing that I want to say is that we have cards like this in many of the seat backs. And sometimes, if they're not in the seat backs, there will always be in the offering basket. So pick one up, fill it out if you have not already done so. And you'll know if you've done so, because if you've done so, you'll get a spiritual practice from me. You'll get notices. There'll be things that you will have been receiving. If not, if you're not getting those, you haven't signed up. Fill this out, return it to me or anyone with a name tag, and we'll make sure you're part of our virtual community. And it's great to have you here. But our soul is welcome here. But sometimes we don't know our soul is welcome because we're not listening. So let's just take a moment to be silent. Just rest. We're going to take a moment of silence, and then we're going to have a beautiful song. And then our opening prayer will be given by Reverend Deborah Gay.
Let's turn our attention to our breath in this prayer. Breathing in and releasing. For the breath itself reminds us how closely linked we are to life itself. And that rhythm, that cycle of receiving and then giving, of giving and then receiving. That is the cycle that is life itself. And so we were reminded of that with every breath and in breathing in community. We bring our attention to this moment to be very mindful of this moment. And we set our intention together about what will occur after this moment. And so I know with you that this service unfolds beautifully, perfectly, with each song, with each word, with each prayer. Our hearts are opened wide. We hear that word that is ours to hear this day. That opens up the door to our next greater good. And it all begins with the breath, with mindful attention to your intention of good. And so with this, we let it go, we let it be, and we say together, and so it is.
I've never talked to this side. Hello. Hello. Oh, see, what a nice group of people you are. How's everybody doing? Wonderful, good. Well, this is a very wonderful, auspicious day, and let's just continue it unfolding with our power talker for today. Someone I've known, I found out for 17 years. I thought it was only 15 or 17 years, Brian Eckfeldt.
Good morning, CSL. Pleasure to be here, and I want to ask a question to start off. How many of you know about Gourmets for God? For those of you that don't know about Gourmets for God, this is a CSL community builder and fundraiser based on an auction which includes a variety of events all focused on food. So I want to... And love. Community. So I want to share a little bit about my experience of hosting an event for Gourmets for God this past year. And I've been involved with events before and helped host and bought food and things like that, but I'd never really cooked a dinner for 20 people, and that's what I stepped up and chose to do. And I thought, wow, that's exciting, and then it set in. Oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? Ever had that feeling where something is exciting at first and then you realize you might have bit off more than you can chew? That was that feeling that I had. So, and in that instance, everything I've learned here kind of went out the window for a minute and I just freaked out. And then I centered myself and I said, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to ask for prayer support and really lean into my community and ask for any other additional help that might want to show up. And things started to happen. I got a person that offered to do all the desserts for my dinner.
Yay.
I went to buy the fish for my dinner and had an idea of what I was going to buy, and the fish guys were there, and I said, what do you think? And they said, no, you want to get this fish. It's more expensive, but it's better. You'll be happier with the results. And I went, you know, okay, something's speaking to me. And I go to check out, and the fish is on sale. Unadvertised sale. A God sale. Third thing is I had somebody offer to help me with all the prep work the day before the event. We were supposed to start in the morning on Saturday for a Sunday event and be all done, and then we'd go see Gypsy Soul in concert in Snohomish. Well, her son all of a sudden found out he had a soccer game on Saturday that started at 3. Well, this wasn't going to fit with our plans, but we went ahead with the part of getting the food all prepped for everything. And we got to a point where there was one thing left to do, and it was roast something in the oven. It was going to take 2 to 3 hours. And I said, do we have time? We had an hour to get from West Seattle to Snohomish. We made it there 5 minutes late. The concert hadn't started. In fact, Roman was there at the front joking as I walked in, charge him double to get into the show. And this is a place that holds 100 people. Concert's about ready to start, virtually sold out. They let us in. We had seats in the second row. Last thing that happened was the actual event, Sunday. It was beautiful. People had a great time. Music was wonderful. My guest, James Howard, was fabulous. Talked about all kinds of things I didn't know about him. How he taught children music, how songs came to him. People had a wonderful time. And that's how we built community that day. And so I leaned into my community to build community. I opened up to what was possible and stepped out of my comfort zone and paid attention. And I'm starting to want to live life that way even more fully and have a life that's not just a miracle every once in a while, but to where miracles become typicals. And to where this community is one that fosters that for everybody. Thank you.
Woo! I love that. We could start saying, I had a typical today. Today was just another typical. Ooh, I love that. Thank you very much. We're talking about decision this month, and I have a quote from The Power of Decision by Raymond Charles Barker. He said, "Decision is the most important function in the individual mind. No creative process can begin until a decision is made." So Brian made a decision to cook for and feed 20 people. It boggles my mind. And out of that decision, inspiration and other things could flow, but they wouldn't have flowed, and he wouldn't have had a typical if he hadn't gone outside of his comfort zone to do something that was beyond what he thought he could do. And then there's the gap of what we want and what we think we can do, and the gap needs to be filled in by something greater than ourselves. But we don't get that experience of something greater than ourselves if we're always staying in our safety zone. So I'm grateful for that story. Today I'm going to talk about sharing, and hope that you will decide to share. That you'll just decide to become a sharer. That what you do is that you share. It's normal. It's natural. You decide to do it, and hopefully you'll continue to share outside your comfort zone. Gourmets for God, for instance, is outside my comfort zone because he mentioned food. So I've done everything I could for Gourmets for God, and then thrown, TJ Maxx, not TJ Maxx, but Trader Joe's, TJ's. Trader Joe's food at people. Go ahead, go into my closet, take anything you want, and here's some snacks. Go play with my horses, and here's some snacks. We'll do art together, and here's a snack. So I know I will do things, and I will commit to doing something, so I can't wait to see what Spirit will have me do with snacks, as you guys. But see, you have to decide. And so in deciding, you get to share what's yours to share, and so I share what's mine to share. It's kind of fun. I hope you decide to share, that you decide your wealth, which means your well-being. Your wealth is what you think keeps you well off. I hope you'll begin to share your faith and yourself. That you decide to do, and you decide to go beyond your comfort zone, because when you go beyond your comfort zone, you'll discover more God. And let's just be biblical for a second, because this is a center for spiritual living. And I could quote the Tao Te Ching, because this is all the Tao Te Ching talks about, is this circulation of life. But I don't have I'm not as well versed in it as I am in the Bible. So I will use a Bible quote right now, which is, as you give, it is given to you. As you give. As. Not just what you give, but as you give it. I love that. As you give. This is important. So if you give grudgingly, you may receive something, but it will have a grudge attached. Now, how many of you have ever received something from someone, but they grudgingly gave it to you? How'd that feel? But as you give, with an experience of freedom or joy, then you not only will be taken care of, you'll receive, but you will receive even more joy or thanksgiving or gratitude. It's a cycle. So the Bible talks about this. And then back in the 80s and the 90s, and maybe the 70s, but I certainly wasn't around in the 70s, But let's just say 80s and 90s, there was a whole lot of personal growth stuff going on. Anybody do any of those personal growth things? Oh, so here's the hardcore. I did hardcore personal growth. I did the original EST training. Who did the original EST training? You know it's hardcore when they give you a barf bag. And you close your eyes and you just hear things. But out of that, and people are shaking their head, yes, oh, it's great. So out of that, and many others of those kinds of trainings, there was a colloquialism came about, which is what goes around comes around. Bible, updated. Einstein said it in another way. He said, you know, whatever goes out must circle around back to itself. Science. Everything goes out, circles around back to itself. So we've got science, we've got pseudoscience, and we have the spiritual scriptures. Any scripture. The Buddha said, your life today is the result of your past thoughts. As you give, not so much what you give, but as you give it, has to circle back around to you. Judge Thomas Troward explained something that I personally tried to live by, and what he said was that, and I need to move this so I can see this better. What he said was that the universe is always flowing, and what it flows through, it nurtures and it supports, like the river. As the river flows, there's nurturing and supporting going on. Things flourish when there's water, and things flourish when spirit flows through us. And one of the reasons to get outside yourself is because when you're more interested in something besides yourself, you become a larger opening through which the universe can flow. If you're only concerned with yourself, you're not a really big receiving opening for anything to happen. It just won't happen. So back to Raymond Charles Barker. So turn to page 95. I'm telling you, you guys. All right, so if there were really cool green and blue backpacks or man purses, would you carry your books with you? No, it's perfectly okay. I'm just teasing. For those people who are here for the first time, we do not require that you bring your books with you. So he says that Oliver Wendell Holmes wrote, man's mind stretched to a new idea never goes back to its original dimension. The more you are aware of the creative process and your place in it, the larger the dimensions of your consciousness and the greater your use of right decisions to keep right on expanding. The infinite is forever thinking out, not in. How many of you, well, wasn't that the 80s and the 90s pretty in? The infinite is forever thinking out, not in. God is not self-centered. God is not self-concerned, for God has nothing to fear. The infinite knows no enemy, and there is no opposition. There's no fight, there's no argument, there's no battle. It is at peace with itself. You are a taker from the infinite in order to be a giver to the finite. So when we are centered, back to being centered in our spirit, we draw from spirit, and then we move it out into the world. It's sort of the spiritual overview for what I wanted to share with you. It's the basis of us being able to really create a better world, whether it's our neighborhood, meaning our block, our street, our city, or something even larger. Well, that's my theory, that's my premise, and now I want to invite today's guests who are experts, our panel of experts on the subject of sharing themselves, their faith, their wealth with others. So I want to introduce to you McKenna. This will sit right here. McKenna and Mari and Graydon. Oh, and Alex. And I am inspired and always taught by my students. And I thought that they might inspire and teach you as well. So I would love for us to start with Alex, because he told a story about what he does on his way to work. And it's inspired me to change the way that I go to work. And it might do the same for you. Alex?
Thank you. So about a little over 3 years ago, while I was in Inward Journey, and I had begun a daily gratitude practice on Facebook, I came to the realization that waking up every day in gratitude was a perfect way to open myself to Spirit in the morning and in sweet anticipation of what would unfold. And for me, I was seeking that still water, that peace inside. And so 1,000 feet from my house is an express bus stop for Metro Transit, and I would get on that bus and I would close my eyes, as most of the passengers had their eyes closed as well. And I would meditate on my way from Kent to downtown Seattle. And I noticed that there were some other people doing spiritual practice. There was an African-American woman who had her Bible open. And in conversation, I found out that she too was seeking peace. And there was a fellow that I sat next to regularly. I couldn't read his book, but it was a chapter from the Quran that he brought with him. And in his practice, he was seeking peace. And so my spiritual practice became blessing everyone from the front of the bus to the back of the bus, and from the back of the bus to the front of the bus, that they might also know peace. And the mantra was enhanced by those bus tires going over the sections of concrete on the freeway. And I knew in that moment that there is only one life, and that life is God's life, and that life is perfect and available to each one of us to know peace. So in growing a vessel of peace, that circumstance, that opening at the beginning of my day, was a way for me to carry that inward into my work day, to see how it would unfold throughout the day. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I also want to introduce to you Mari. Mari also has a story about praying. And this was a stretch, I would say, because she decided she would pray out loud. Go ahead and tell your story.
So I come from a love of prayer, but a different tradition. And through studies and engaging in prayer the way that we do it here, I felt amazing transformation for myself. I saw it in others. But what Kathianne's referring to is that in December, I spoke out loud in practitioner class and said that I was going to pray and offer prayer to my family, which was a stretch because they aren't used to this tradition. And what I loved about it was that I've always prayed and I've always listened. I've always been that person in my family that people want to talk to. And I've never really felt like I could let it go. Like I ruminated and I wanted so much for peace or joy or resolution, but it would weigh on me. And the way that we pray here, I feel completely liberated and free. And so it was a stretch because I was showing up in my family in a different way. And it was amazing, some of the most powerful experiences I had. One was actually with someone in my family that was in dire circumstances. He was completely hopeless. And he was the first person I prayed for. And it was a moment where being a conduit of something bigger that came through, and you could feel the shift. And he couldn't really speak after, but a few weeks later, he said, I thought you were reading something, because I was just so inspired. So it was beautiful, and it is, as Kathianne said, it is doing something that's out of your comfort zone where you feel you really grow and expand. So that's my story.
Thank you. I'm really grateful that I was able to step outside my comfort zone. I was just thinking about this because we had a kind of a taboo against talking about God or anything in my family. And even though we grew up and went our separate ways, and some people found different paths. My sister, for instance, became a Mormon, and she had terminal cancer, and I did a treatment for her over the phone or a prayer. And it was amazing because it was intimate, because spirituality is intimate. I think that's why we sometimes don't talk about it, or when we do, we get defensive because it's such an intimate thing. But it was an intimate experience to be able to do that for my sister and with my sister. And having been Mormon myself, at one time, I knew how to throw in the right words so she was comfortable. Oh, yeah. We do what we can. So, Graydon. Graydon is a sharer. I'm sure that he was around before he started sharing, but I really noticed when he started sharing because he was showing up at CBEC, sharing, taking vacation off to work with our young people. Graydon.
Hello, CSL. So I was tricked. I thought we were going to be playing Spiritual Jeopardy. Ernest Holmes for 100. But there is a funny story about how I ended up saying yes to this particular panel discussion because I had sent Reverend Kathianne an email. And in this email, it was a revelation about what I experienced in prac class. I'm also a student in the class, and we had this class that was very intellectual. We were talking about all these different words and accepting and knowing and holding the truth and all of this stuff. And at some point during the class, it occurred to me that what I was really there for was to simply know God for myself. I didn't even know anymore if I was don't take any of this personally. I didn't know if I was interested in knowing God for any of you all. I really was interested in knowing God for me. And it occurred to me that there was a shift that I really wanted to know this personal relationship. And so I had a revelation, right, to reveal. And I told this to somebody, and they said, oh my gosh, you should email Reverend Kathianne that. Probably like, I'm going to throw him under the bus. So I did. I emailed subject line, my revelation, right? So I write this email to Reverend Kathianne, and in essence, what it says is that God is a personal experience. Reverend Kathianne's probably thinking, 10 years, and you finally realize that the church is in trouble. And so she doesn't say that. She emails me back a few lines. You have your answer. You're supported. You're fine, right? That's what I get back. Perfect. Whew. I dodged that one. 2 days later, I get a phone call. And the phone call only says this. Hi, this is Kathianne. Can you call me back when you have a moment? I'm all like, I don't know Kathianne. Who's Kathianne? And I was like, wait a second. That could be Reverend Kathianne, but she sounds so sweet on the phone. I listened to it 3 times. I'm like, I don't think that's Kathianne. I'm going to call her back. When you call back her cell phone, guess what it says? Hi, this is Kathianne. Please leave a message. What? I still got nothing. I'm like, hi, this is Graydon, returning your phone call. And then I was pretty sure at that point it was her. So she calls me back and she says, hey, Graydon, we're having a panel discussion on Sunday. Would you be willing to participate? The only thing going through my mind was, it's not about the email. It's not about the email. It's not about the email. Of course, I would love to do whatever you just asked me. So that's why I'm here. And my story about being at CSL is one that healing something in me that has been with me since I was a little boy. When I was like 6 years old, something would happen in my household, and my mantra, it didn't matter what it was, my mantra immediately became, nobody loves me, I'm not loved, nobody loves me. And I would go rushing off to my room, but my sister, who was 9 years older than me, usually would get in when she couldn't take it anymore. That's right, nobody loves you, and you're adopted. Thanks, Debbie. So that was this thing that has been with me for a really long time. And I came to this church, and I didn't know it when I first got here and started saying yes to service, that this was going to be my experience. That I had Reverend Yvonne come up to me, who I fell in love with, right, immediately. If anybody remembers Reverend Yvonne. Reverend Yvonne is probably one of the only ministers on campus. Something was going on, and she would stop in the middle of it, and she'd go, let's pray. And I'd be like, oh, now? Pray now. Okay, great. So I started saying yes to Reverend Jan about almost anything, but every place I said yes, whether it was membership, I was on some other committees, I found out that what was happening was that I was having an opportunity to be loved by you all, and that you let me love you. And then I had an opportunity, like 8 years ago, to start working with a children's program at CBEC. And I'm looking at some of my parents from the kids that I work with, and it touches my heart so deeply, because that's the place where I really figured out that I came to this church to be healed in love. And this thing that I have about having a personal relationship with God it is truly an individual manifestation of how God shows up in my life, but if it's not shared with all of you, it doesn't mean anything. And so I now know that's why I'm here. And what I can really say more than anything to all of you who show up and love God and have an experience is thank you. Thank you for loving, and thank you for allowing me to love you.
McKenna is all over the place. She's been very active in the business ministry, and now is one of the coaches for the business ministry. Having received, she now shares her expertise with other people who are building their businesses. In fact, she just shares. She is a sharer. She is a natural expression of God's givingness. And she comes from a tradition of sharing. You want to tell us more?
Thank you. Well, I feel like saying my name is McKenna, and which is my tradition of sharing. I am a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm in recovery. And in that 12-step tradition, sharing is a huge part. It is how we stay clean and sober, is by giving it away. And so they talk about that a lot. And as I was growing in my spiritual practice, I'd be reading things on from like the Dalai Lama and Mother Teresa, and they said the same things that Bill W. talks about, that the source of all suffering is selfishness and self-centeredness, and that the way out of that is through service. And so, and you touched on that a lot, and so that's, you know, what I started doing a lot. And so when I came here, I really wanted to understand this tradition, and also through the lens of my 12-step, fellowship. And as I did so, I met Reverend Heather and Reverend Colin. Thank you so much. And just really answer a lot of questions. And I can really see how the teachings of Science of Mind and the 12-step fellowship is like so close. And what I find that I love about both traditions and about doing service is like the 12th step is having had a spiritual awakening, we practice these principles in all our affairs. And through doing that, I allow Spirit to move through me. And through doing that, it's like I get out of my own way. And so it's a way for me to get more God in my life. If you really want more God in your life, do more service. And the other thing that's really cool about it that I found is that through doing that, and it's not just showing up and doing like volunteer work and that kind of stuff, although that can be a part of it, but it is really doing it through a spiritual connection. So as I do more, what I find is then I get these amazing demonstrations because Spirit keeps asking me to do more and more things, and I keep going, wow, am I really supposed to do that? And I really feel like, yeah, I am. And so I was like, you got to make it easy then. And so it's like almost on a daily, and Mari knows this, she's my prayer partner, which is another great way of sharing. But it's like I have daily demonstrations of stuff working out easily because it's just, I just get clear. It's like if I am to do this work, then you need to, make sure everything else happens. And it's just been a beautiful expression. So I love being of service. That's what I was doing when I got asked to do this. I was here, speaking with somebody through the recovery ministry, which we actually, let me do a shameless plug for that, is we have a recovery ministry here now. So for anybody in any 12-step tradition, it's on the first Sunday of the month, and it's from 9 to 10:30, and so that would be next Sunday. And yeah, just come in and be a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything that any of you would like to add about sharing yourself, your faith, your light? I love it that Mari did it with her family, which was the difficult part. I'll pray for you. She actually sent out letters to everyone for Christmas. I will pray for you. And then she prayed out loud with them. Ooh.
I would just like to pop back in and reinforce that when I feel that shift happening inside of me, it's not the people around me who have changed. It's my perception that has changed. And so that peace that is happening on that bus every morning, that 157, when you see us go down the freeway, you'll know that's the peace bus coming into Seattle. That's a whole group of people who have shifted. And if each one of us take that perceptible shift and bring it forward in our day, then our work groups all change at work, and someone else shifts because of that.
Yeah, and I'd like to remind myself that prayer is not actually activating God, right? That's revelation to me. So this whole process that we go through, or that we're taught, like this quote-unquote 5-step prayer, is not like, it's not flipping a switch. You don't turn God on with that. And this is what I needed to know for myself. God is operating always. The presence of God, the love of God, is always, always, always available to any of us at any time, in any moment of any day, in the smallest of times, and in the big stuff too. That, as Reverend Kathianne has said so many times so that even I can understand it, prayer is the time and effort necessary to shift my consciousness so that I can be aware and awake. And I need that because there's a lot going on up here. Yeah, so I would add.
Mari, would you like to add anything?
I guess the only thing I want to add is that I just find this whole process so beautiful. Now, when I'm in a situation and there is any sort of turmoil, the first thing I think about is prayer. And it's changed my entire way of being. And I'm just really grateful for that. So if any of you need prayer, be in the hall.
Or a hug.
Or a hug.
Anything else, McKenna?
I'll just say really quick that if you have a calling in your heart that you want to do something, but you are sitting there thinking, I don't have time. How am I going to, I already don't have enough time or whatever, to do it anyway, because that's when God shows up. If it's really a calling of your heart, that's how you prove God. You know, one of the biggest blessings that I've had is that in working with Reverend Sharon, she always lifts me to the next level where I'll tell her what it is that I really want, and she'll say, oh, you could do that. Let's pick up something that you can't do so that God can prove God's strength and magnificence and how God works with you and how much in partnership you are with Spirit. So I would invite you all to be your truest, biggest selves. Okay.
Thank you. Well, I love the part about, if you think you can't, then maybe it is yours to do. So I'll end with a story, and then we're going to pray. The story is from the Bible. I didn't tell that first service, did I? The Bible where the prophet's mean to somebody. Did I tell it this? I told it this. I didn't do it this service, though, did I? Thank you. See, this is how we work together. It's a good thing there's one mind. Lots of heads.
Ignore the man behind the curtain.
Oh, okay. So in the Bible, there's a story of a prophet, one of the prophets, who is besieged by a widow, actually begging him to save her, to help her, because in the times that they were talking about, which is anywhere between 3,000 and 2,500 years ago, if someone was in debt, whoever you were in debt to could take anything they wanted to pay the debt. So the widow had been left with debts. The gentleman had died and left her with her son and debt. So the debtors were saying, that's no problem, we'll just take your son. So they would have taken him into slavery to pay the debt. Who knows how much it was? And so she was begging the prophet to save her from that. And he said, well, first, let's see, what do you have in your house? And she said, oh, I have so little. And he said, well, how about you make me a meal? Make you a meal? All I've got is a little bit of meal and some oil and some water. I can't make you what? No, just make me something. I need to eat. Now, doesn't that seem cruel? Doesn't it seem cruel if you'd look at it on the surface that here this woman is in distress and some guy saying, fix me a meal? But she began to pour the meal and the oil to make him a meal, and there was more than enough. In fact, she kept pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring and found that she had enough meal and enough oil to pay all her debts. Sometimes we really need to step out of our comfort zone, because that which will save us will never be outside of us. That which will save us will be inside of us. And we don't know that till we start to give, to share, to distribute. So we're going to distribute a prayer. Who has a prayer request? Something that might be universal. So if you want to get into Stanford, maybe not that prayer, because I don't want to go. So what's a yes?
Forgiveness.
You'd like a prayer for forgiveness, that you could forgive?
Or others around me, yes.
Yes, so there's forgiveness in the air. Anyone else? Yes?
Health and energy.
Oh, that was first service, but we'll do it again. Okay, health and energy and forgiveness. So we're just going to open this up. I'm going to start it, and my wonderful friends here will just join in. This is going to be a impromptu catch can prayer. Right? Yep. All right, here we go. So I just give thanks. I'm here in the midst of God. God is the very midst of me. For I know that there's only one life, and that life is God's life, and that life is perfect, and it's everywhere. So it must be where I am. And I know that in that perfection there is order, and there is harmony, and there is a sense of rightness. And our hearts always know this. Our hearts will always lead us into this great sense of rightness. So I know that rightness is
within me. It is my homing device as I center myself on the awareness of God in this moment. And as I speak this for myself, I speak that for every person in this room, that we are finding that centered place within ourselves where we commune with the Most High, where we are in touch with the divine. And as we allow ourselves to focus on and turn towards the divine, it not only turns towards us, it fills us up. For just as the story went with the prodigal son, as the son turned to the father rushed to the son. And so that is our story. And so in this moment, all of the prodigal people in the room, let us turn our attention to the Most High so that we can begin to be filled again, wrapped in its presence, wrapped in its love, wrapped in its energy, and wrapped in its perfection, that we may breathe it in and breathe it out and know it beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is God, and all that we need is inside that God.
And I speak my word of truth. Giving thanks for the service, this time together, this time of sharing, this time of knowing that who we are is exactly enough. In fact, it is more than enough. That through this knowingness and this truth of who we are, we can touch the lives of others through our own special way, through our way of loving, our way of giving, that our life is an expression of God.
In peace, poise, and equilibrium, at the depths of my soul, I feel God is there, God is here, God is everywhere. Surrounded in love and light and truth and wonder and joy and bliss, we come together with our feet rooted and our hands reaching up high, allowing the beauty and the grace of God's light flowing through us, washing away, making new in the most beautiful, easy, and joyful way.
And I invite you to open up your heart and your mind to the beauty and the love of God, and know that you are loved by God for no other reason than you were born. There is nothing you need to do to earn the love of God. I invite you to be in partnership with Spirit, to let the holy presence of the one that you love you, and know that it is the truth of who you are. Bring that into who and what you are in every moment of every day, and let that love be the light of all that you are.
And I'm grateful to stand in sacred witness that there is no disconnect from God. There is no condemnation, only forgiveness. There is no disdain, only love. That every aspect of the one that we allow to come to our consciousness is made manifest in our lives. And I call this truth good.
And I give thanks for the consciousness said and the words spoken by my beloveds, knowing that we are the voice in this moment of something that moves through us to speak words of truth and love and light and lifting. I give thanks that there is a collective acceptance of forgiveness because there's only love. And so all else is shadow. I give thanks that we are seeing the perfect life of God, knowing that perfect life, and that it must show up in our minds, in our bodies, in our spirit. That perfection is no longer somehow sequestered out there in the faraway space, the large universe and galaxies, in a time far, far away. Oh, no, 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 no.
If God is present, God's perfection is present. And I give thanks that we breathe that in and we lap it up, and all of our cells say, hallelujah. And we let it be. We turn our attention to that which feeds us instead of what we've been feeding on. And we allow ourselves the elixir of life. And so with gratitude, I know that these words are already beginning to be fulfilled in mind, and therefore they are the law unto the law of cause and effect. And so we can rest with glad anticipation of what will come about this day. And let us together say, and so it is. Thank you, babies. And while they're doing that, I just see a few things I want to say. First of all, if you like conversation, we had a conversation. We're going to have another conversation with the Board of Trustees for members and anyone else who wants to show up at 1 o'clock in the Homes room, which is up the stairs, and you'll hear the chatter and all the noise and stuff. We'd love to have you. It's our first ever community conversation, something we hope to have quarterly or every 2 months, see how it turns out. It's an experiment. And like this was, we just experiment, see what happens, see how it goes. Life is one great risk, don't you think? Yes. So let's bless our gift. And remember, it's not so much what we give, but as we give. So let us give with love. Let's give with joy. Let's give with gratitude. Let's give because our heart tells us to. The heart is, that heart chakra, that heart space is the place that can feel the love flow through. And it feels good to give. So here we teach, we do not give to gain God's approval or favor. We give because it feels good. Yippee-ki-yay, and so it is.